Just remember that.
All right.
All right. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Dudes Brunch, a podcast where four dudes talk about popular culture and also what they ate for brunch that day. So the way this show works is I'm going to introduce you to the panel. They're going to talk a little bit about their brunch, and then each of them has brought one thing to the table for the group to talk about. Links to everything we talk about will be in the show notes below the YouTube video out there. So be on the lookout for that. Also, you can tweet to us at DudesBrunch on Twitter or use the Q&A box on the right side of the screen, and we will answer your questions in real time because this is the internet. So, all of that being said, I'm Taylor, and for brunch today I had some oatmeal with brown sugar and raisins and a coffee. Tyler Reed, who are you, and what did you have for brunch today?
Hey, by the way, prime choice on that, the oatmeal with brown sugar. Love it. I actually kind of had a double brunch today. I had some breakfast corn dogs, which is sausage wrapped in pancakes, and I dipped in a little bit of syrup. And then for sort of dinner, I had some bacon with pepper jack cheese on everything bagels.
No egg?
No egg.
Mmm,
My mom was like, "Do you want bacon?" I'm like, "I guess."
not a good substitute.
I mean, I agree, but
Sean, who are you? What did you have for brunch?
Oh, I'm Sean. Still in the lovely port city of Cleveland. I had lovely banana and strawberry bread with a little bit of country crock and a cup of black coffee. It was good.
And last but not least, Mr. Jeschke.
That's me, Drew Tvejeski. And for brunch today, I had some instant
What'd you
microwave.
have?
See?
You
Hello?
cut out a little bit there. What'd you have?
Oh, I had some instant oatmeal, and then I skipped all the way to dinner and made some skyline chili because I missed Cincinnati.
Well, at
Just
least you made one
diarrhea.
smart food choice today. All right, so everybody watching live and everybody watching later, thank you for joining us. We are going to start tonight by talking about Tyler's topic, which is Mark Ronson. So I'll let Tyler give us some background before we get going here.
okay. So my topic for this week is Mark Ronson, specifically his latest album, Uptown Funk. I, like most people, probably heard. Actually, the album's Uptown Special, the single Uptown Funk. We probably all heard Uptown Funk recently, which is actually not made by Bruno Mars, actually made by Mark Ronson. Bruno Mars is just singer in that song. I dropped the ball. What everyone think about it?
Where'd the ball go?
Great segue. Yeah, hey, sir, can we have our ball back?
Well, to your credit, Tyler, it is kind of a big album. Well, there's like 16 tracks on there or something like that. Like,
Yeah,
there's a lot to talk about.
there's a lot to talk about, and it's named for the producer of the album, not any of the vocalists or featured
Right.
musicians, which makes it kind
There
of
we
hard to talk
go.
about.
All right, okay, I got it
Doesn't
back,
he
got it
sing on
back. Okay,
Fearstruck?
so I just need a second to compute it. All right, so listen to the album. I previously had not heard it before this week, and then I also took the opportunity to listen to his previous album and then his first album. And so one of the major, I guess, collaborators on this album that you so politely reminded me of was Stevie Wonder, who I'm sure everyone just knows for Superstition and probably nothing else because we didn't grow up in the 80s. And so the way that kind of almost like the album came about was that he just sent an email out to hold on, what's up?
Yeah, so I can pick up where Tyler left off there. So Mark Ronson wrote this song in the middle of the night, essentially, and then realized that he wanted it to be played by Stevie Wonder, and so he emailed the sheet music to Stevie, and his people, and Stevie Wonder sent him an MP3 file or whatever of him playing the harmonica track, which eventually got on the album.
Right, and so I ended up listening to about 3 hours of Stevie Wonder while I was doing some work, and it was all right. There's some weird stuff in there. There's some things about he's like there's a girl he's in love with, and he's like trying to buy her off or something. I don't know. It was weird.
Well, the 80s were a weird time.
I guess so. But okay. Yeah, no, go ahead.
I was just going to ask, are you asking, for starters, general thoughts on Uptown Special?
Yeah, go ahead. Any opinions on what you thought about the album?
So, somebody had actually recommended that I listen to Mark Ronson a long time ago, and I completely forgot their recommendation, and I feel really bad. So if Jacob watches this, I'm sorry. I just got around to doing this like this week. But I was first of all, I'm really impressed by how talented Mark Ronson is, just in general. He's a great songwriter. He's a very good multi-instrumentalist. He obviously knows like the history of popular music really well and is able to pull things from multiple genres to make it work in an interesting way. Sometimes it doesn't always work out exactly as you would expect it to, or I think he would expect it to. But I was familiar with his work producing Paul McCartney, actually, on Paul McCartney's new album, appropriately titled New. So I didn't like connect the dots in my head that Uptown Funk was the same producer as that song. And once I did, it kind of makes sense. I don't know, he's just really good at making slightly alternative, mostly like historically conscious pop music, I guess, is my thought.
That's definitely true. I think it's funny because his first album, like, it was okay, like it didn't have like great success, and the second album like super took off, and then obviously his album's probably going to be his best, most likely. It's funny because it just seemed like it was just he had to be there, right place, right time, because he'd been doing basically the same thing for years. Like this has been his game for the whole time, and it's just like all of a sudden now people are like, oh, it's just like Nardwar, who's like just ask people. I think that's really sort of how he probably built up his resume. Is he just continuously asked people to work with him, and this is probably his most stunning album yet, except for missing that Amy Winehouse from the last album.
I think the other interesting thing is that this album is very 70s influenced. Like it feels like 70s AM radio, kind of rocky, poppy stuff. But the album before this, Record Collection, is so 80s. Like synthy and spandex and just 80s everywhere. And I don't know, the 80s seem to be more in vogue in popular music right now than they were in 2010.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm almost wondering if maybe he's a little ahead of the curve.
He's leading the charge.
He could be.
Mm-hmm.
No, I totally agree with on that. That's one thing that kind of struck me about the whole album was like it seemed like a period piece. I was like, wow, as a producer, he can really make that sound. Like he really picked up on like what made that particular era a strong time for music. Those particular tracks.
It's like he wasn't even pulling from a single genre of that decade. It was just like the whole like late 70s, early 80s.
Not
like,
speaking from experience for any of us, because it's not like we're alive to experience any of those sounds.
There was one thing that I don't think. Okay, I'm gonna go out on a limb here and say that Uptown Funk shouldn't have been the single from that album.
Really?
I don't think Uptown Funk should be on that album. I don't think it fits.
I thought, like, my favorite track on that whole thing was Leaving Los Feliz. That was my favorite track. And when I'm talking, like, 10-1, my favorite track. Everything was good, but that was my favorite.
I think that was my favorite, and then Feel Right was my second favorite.
So
And I
I don't
understand
know.
why
I just
Feel Right doesn't get the radio play because of the language in it.
yeah.
But I
And
think
it's
it's a
like an
much
introduction
better
to
song.
Uptown Funk.
Mhm.
It is an introduction, but I think once again that's just good producing.
Yeah.
Like you look at Modest Mouse's "Good News for People Who Love Bad News." The whole album is written basically in the same key, so that all of the songs can flow together. And on the second time through Uptown Special, I noticed that about this album is it all feels the same because it's all written in basically the same set of chords, and that's what makes it flow so nicely.
Whoa.
I still think Uptown Funk was probably the best song, but I don't know. It certainly felt like a single, and the other songs on the album to me didn't feel like singles. I don't know. There's just something about it. It's like it's a hit, you know. It's a hit or it's a hit.
I wouldn't disagree with that at all. I think
No.
like picking Bruno Mars for that song was perfect. I don't know. When I looked him up on YouTube and saw where he did Uptown Funk with Bruno Mars live on it was SNL.
Yeah, I think so.
That was cool. Like that was really cool. Like it really felt like you were stepping back in time to watch like an actual band play a song. And there's a chorus there. There's Bruno Mars who's like a great funk man, and then there's like Mark Ronson just over there like just playing on the bass like looking all cool. And I was just like, this is cool. Like that's why I think this is a cool album. But I think overall there was better songs.
I agree. I like you said though, I really like that it has that sort of old style feel while being a producer record, which is definitely a trend we're seeing a lot of. I mean, look at that last Daft Punk record. Like, that's all that was. My favorite album of 2014, actually, we asked about this last week in our test episode, but I've decided that my actual favorite album was Strangers by RAC, Remix Artist Collective. And it's set up in a similar way to this, but it has a different sound. It's a producer just working with a bunch of different collaborators, and so it's like Tegan and Sarah are on a song, and the dude from Block Party are on a song, and so on and so forth.
Is Mark Ronson on tour?
I don't know.
Does he tour with this, or is it kind of just like? Because I was just curious, like, it would be cool to go see this live, especially after watching on SNL. That would be really cool, but I just think, like, all-star lineup, like, that's kind of the problem is, like, getting all these people, the logistics of getting, 6 major pop stars all together on one tour to do one thing.
He's playing a festival in the UK in June.
That makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Your other option when you do something like this, actually, I don't know, are you okay moving a little bit from this album to collaborator albums in general, Tyler? I don't want to cut you off if you have more to say about this album.
No, not really. It was just great. I think I may have actually liked his previous album a little bit better. Like I said, that song with Amy Winehouse, God rest her soul. It's gone before her time.
I agree.
But
so albums with lots of collaborators on them. The most recent Moby album actually was Onions, but I think 12 out of the 14 tracks had collaborators. And he only did 2 shows for this album, and he live streamed them online. He did them in California, but next to where he lives, and he said, like, I'm old. I can't go on tour like I'm 20 anymore. So I'll do the shows online, and then I'll sell the DVD, and this will also allow me to bring all these collaborators in for a big super show one night. What do you guys think about that? Like, obviously we all live in the Midwest, so getting to LA for that kind of show.
Live Aid, whatever.
Yeah, it's kind of
I kind of want to see it though. Like, okay, so good producers that I've seen live, RJD2, like that was cool. It's just kind of disappointing that you see that someone makes this good of a record, and you're never gonna get to see him live. You and I are, it's just
It's
that's
like
just
the
disappointing
record's
for me.
so big that it can't be contained to like one venue.
Right.
Because you have
I
like,
think that's kind of cool, though.
well, yeah, it makes
You
for
have
a
the Who
really
to blame
cool
for this.
record, but it makes it impossible to tour.
Yeah.
General seating doomed us forever to have good musicians come here.
That's a good point. For those who don't know, just look up the Who Stampede in Cincinnati. It was at some point in the 70s. Basically, general admission seating led to a bunch of people getting trampled at a concert venue in our hometown. And it's really hurt our concert bookings, along with a few other factors that we don't need to get into.
The closing of the Mad Hatter.
Yeah,
God
pour
rest
some
his
out for the homies at the Mad Hatter. Anybody who's watching who's been to a show at the Mad Hatter, hit us up in the questions or on Twitter and pour one out for our homies. So,
And then you go to KFC.
and then go to KFC, yes.
Wait, it was the Lee's, wasn't it?
No,
Wasn't
no, it's Lee's. It's Lee's chicken.
Yeah, it was the
Then
Lee's
go to
famous
Lee's
chicken. I'm
Chicken.
sorry. I'm sorry.
There you go. Sorry.
This segment of our show is sponsored by Lee's Chicken. Lee's Chicken. Greasy fingers good.
So, would you travel to go to one of these big shows, like to go see Uptown Special played in full with all of the features?
Yes.
Is this a hypothetical presupposing I have a stable job and income and the time and...
Yes.
Okay, then yeah, of course.
It would probably be like a Hollywood Bowl type thing, or like Bonnaroo or some huge festival like that.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's how they did that Gorillaz special that they released the DVD of. I think they did it at like Austin City Limits or something, and then just showed it on TV. Because, I mean, Gorillaz is kind of the same way. Like, imagine touring with all of those people.
Right.
Imagine touring as a bunch of cartoon characters.
Well, also that.
Bum, bum, bum.
That'd be the easy part.
That actually probably would be the easiest part.
They're all cartoons. They don't even exist. They can't make ridiculous guacamole recipe demands.
Oh, no.
Who was that? Who got busted for that?
Jack
That was
White.
Jack White.
That's right. I remember reading that and being like, sorry, this is off topic. That was crazy that his publicity company was like, you can't do that. He feeds other people.
Yeah, so viewers of the show, Jack White's PR firm released a statement condemning a venue who didn't provide guacamole, among other things. There were other things, but it
There were
was
bananas.
guacamole specifically.
They weren't that crazy though. I remember when
No.
Machine Gun Kelly came to OU. There, I saw a list of the things that he wanted, and it was like he wants somebody dressed up in a rabbit suit, like just standing around in his room, just watching him do stuff, and then like a plate of cheese. And I was just like, God, this dude is creepy. You know, like Jack White wants guacamole, so what?
Yeah, Jack White wants guacamole to feed to his crew.
Right.
Like, not even, I must have organic guacamole in my room. It was, I want a table full of food, this is what my crew likes to eat. I thought that was totally realistic.
Shame on you, Jack White.
Could just went to Chipotle.
Mm-hmm.
But guac is extra.
It's true, guac is extra.
I think if you tell him, listen,
I do it for Jack White.
Jack White needs guac, give it to me right now.
Still extra.
Everything stops, and you get Jack White his guac.
Okay.
All
I think we
right.
should move on to weird memes or weird Twitter.
There's not a whole lot of difference there.
Oh yeah,
Oh,
no, it was a good segue.
Before we move on, I've got feedback in the questions from my friend who works at the auditorium here in Athens, and he said that Waka Flocka Flames rider 2 weeks ago was ridiculous.
8 bottles of Hennessy.
And Sarah suggests that Machine Gun Kelly actually just wants to be Donnie Darko.
Yeah, probably.
Someone in a rabbit.
That wouldn't surprise me.
Kevin, if you can remember anything from Waka's Rider and share with us, that would be great. In the meantime, Drew, explain what the hell weird Twitter is.
Oh man, I don't think anyone could ever explain what weird Twitter is in the amount of time that we have allotted. Well, basically, weird Twitter, like, first you have to go back to the beginnings of Twitter, back in 2006, 2008, when, like, this guy created a spam bot to sell ebooks, and it was called Horse Ebooks. But to get past Twitter's spam filter, instead of linking to random horse ebooks all the time, it would just like grab random quotes from famous people and like chop them up and put them together in just really ridiculous ways. So like every fifth tweet from horse ebooks would just be like sales stuff, and then the rest would just be like complete nonsense. And a whole community like grew up around that, like tweeting out their own like just complete ridiculous nonsense, and eventually it became known as Weird Twitter in 2013, which of course made all of the weird Twitter people really upset because they felt like the nerds had ruined their fun, so to speak, by giving them a label. It contained them all, and now they've like the people who do this have been like branching out into like other sort of things. They go and do some like social justice type stuff and like make fun of people with neck beards, that sort of thing. And some of them are just like kind of like live journaling. Like there's a lot of people that I follow. It's just like, here's my life as an English professor, told through jokes, something like that.
That's not weird Twitter. That's just what Twitter's for.
Yeah.
What are you
But some of it is definitely weird. In the article that Drew gave us, which I'll link in the show notes later, it shares people like Drill and Mo Butte and at Fart, and the tweets are just...
You don't need to say the at, Taylor.
That's true.
Yeah.
They're just surrealistic garbage jokes. Like, a lot of them don't even make sense. Like, sir, I'm here to speak to you about, and then in parentheses, briefcase falls open, jelly beans roll everywhere.
Yeah, they have like certain precedents that like if you put something, an action in between the like it's when you press shift and hit 8.
Oh, the asterisk?
The asterisk, yes. If you put like an action and an asterisk, that's like weird Twitter for like this thing is happening.
That's just
That's just internet. For
that's normal.
Yeah.
Jesus, Drew.
So, does anybody else follow weird Twitters? I follow a few.
Well, since I'm on Twitter and I follow people who are popular on Twitter, I inadvertently also follow weird Twitter because some people just like to reblog that. Reblog.
Jeez, Tyler, you don't have to say reblog.
Retweet.
Retweet.
So, I'm sorry.
I never heard of this phenomenon
Until
ever,
right now.
until I read this article. Ever. After I did, like I wasn't shocked. Like I wasn't like, oh, someone would use Twitter to like do something like silly. Okay, come on. But like, I don't know. The more that I read it, the more I'm using it. I thought it was like it's kind of abstractly funny.
It's almost. Well, but to me, it's almost like a raw, unprocessed form of the internet, just like short, like 140 characters and just complete nonsense.
And that's kind of what I love about it.
Yeah.
I love that as I'm scrolling through my Twitter feed, every once in a while, just like complete random nonsense shows
You have a little giggle party.
Yeah, a little giggle party. Viewers, if you want to tweet in or question in your favorite weird tweets. One of my favorite weird Twitters is Wolf Puppy, which is just supposedly like an actual puppy-sized wolf, but it also has a really dark sense of humor. And so it'll say things like, in a way, hermit crabs are the garden snails of the beach, but in most other ways, they are not. Thank you for watching my documentary. And
Wait, so that means isn't Coffee Dad also weird Twitter then?
yes, Coffee Dad is like the most extreme of the weird Twitters, in my opinion.
I don't know if
familiar with
that's
Coffee
true.
Dad?
I'm sure you could find a little bit worse, but Coffee Dad's the mainstream weird, right? Everyone
Yeah,
knows
like
Coffee
so
Dad.
weird that it's gone mainstream.
I love Coffee Dad, though. Coffee Dad will just tweet things like, making coffee,
whatever his name is.
time for coffee, and then later in the day it'll be like, remembering the horrible death of my son.
Jacob Carlson brings up a good point in that it really is just like internet culture, because I mean it's the same thing. Like, I'm sure somewhere on 4chan people are also making the same jokes, and like I have an excellent point to this because I watched another podcast and they said this and I thought it was really smart. Okay, so the Super Bowl, we all saw the Mountain Dew Kickstart one where you like drink it and there's like a dancing like scuba guy and there's like a deer and everyone's just like dancing nonsensically, and that's like sort of how sort of almost like our expensive like promo ads kind of work now, is that we have to like access a little bit of like the internet weird humor, or for them to like kind of go viral. So I mean it's kind of LOL so random kind of humor, but I mean it's still, I mean if you do it right, it's fucking hilarious. Like I was just reading the page on Weird Twitter and I just bust out laughing. It's just, what's it for? I mean Weird Twitter's just for entertainment. Like I said, it's a little giggle party. A little giggle party in your feed.
Right. So what about these weird Twitters that do social justice-y things, Drew?
That's kind of like just like, I don't really know where I was going with that. I think I was just confusing my general Twitter feed with weird Twitter.
If you're gonna talk about Gamergate, we're not gonna talk about Gamergate.
No.
We're not.
I actually have seen that, though, but in a very, like, I don't know, a very tongue-in-cheek surrealist way with @birds rights activist, which acts as if it's an activist Twitter account, but it's talking about birds and their lack of rights over humans.
Real Carrot Facts, apparently, is also weird Twitter.
Yes, I was going to talk about that in a minute.
I'm sorry.
Real Carrot Facts has a little bit of that kind of stuff.
It's kind of like Coffee Dad a little bit.
It says, we should be judged not by the color of our skin, but by the crunch of our carrot. Martin the King Jr.
And then later in the day, it'll tweet something like, Karen, please come back to me.
I forgot about that. Yeah, Real Carrot Facts can actually be kind of sad.
I mean, let's be honest. It's a little like procedurally generated in that it's like random thing that's sort of related to carrots. Really like not self-deprecating, but like really like hard-hitting like Nietzsche quote,
Carrot tastes good. Megan, I will never get over you.
I will stare into the abyss.
My grandpa liked carrots, but my grandpa is dead. Rest in peace, Grandpa Chundy. The smell of a carrot can be described as damp wood.
Okay.
There are also some smarter ones that are starting to come around. Now I'm seeing like Emmanuel Contier, I think it is, or maybe it's @Contier West, which is Emmanuel Kant quotes mixed with Kanye West lyrics. Or one of them actually followed me today. Let me see if I can find it. Wow. King Jameson Bible, which takes quotes from Frederick Jameson's texts on postmodernism and mashes it up with sentences from the King James translation of the Bible.
Wow, that's okay. So James, very dense Marxist postmodern scholar for people who don't know.
Yeah, I don't even understand most of these tweets. There are things like, today, however, I think we would no longer look for such characteristic or symptomatic objects in World and 6.
Thanks,
Right.
Weird Twitter.
Well, that's definitely weird.
Yeah.
Also
And Twitter.
relating to episode -1, pilot -1, there's a Twitter called Peter Molyneux, in which it's just the stupidest like game design ideas, you know. And they're like not him, but it's just like it's like a parody account, and it's really funny too. And they actually had like a game jam that was like, make games that are based on these tweets.
And let's not forget Bored Elon Musk, which is all of the ideas that Elon Musk writes down when he's bored. And 80s Don Draper, where Don Draper tries to sell you crappy made-for-TV products from the 80s.
If they would keep the show going for 10 more years, that would
Yes,
actually be
please.
reality.
I'm not sure I want that. I'll see if I can find a good 80s Don Draper quote, and you'll realize what I mean. Yeah, we yearn for a past we've never known, to walk the streets of our father's use. This device isn't a DeLorean. It's a time machine. I don't want
Oh,
that.
I love it.
I love Mad Men too much for that to happen.
That.
As we're hitting a lull in weird Twitter.
Did anybody?
Go ahead, Sean.
Okay.
We'll ramp it back up.
So
I was
when
just going to
we're-
read through Waka Flocka's rider.
Oh, okay. I was gonna talk about something that would segue into your article, but
Yeah,
if
so
you wanna
let's talk
read
Waka Flocka and just get that out of the way.
Okay.
Kevin says Waka Flocka requested $300 worth of alcohol, specifically 2 bottles of Grey Goose, 3 bottles of Hanilla expensive champagne, and lots of mixers, and a plate full of chicken strips, or as Jacob calls them, chicken tendies. Hannah says that he requested 72 virgins, which I don't necessarily believe, but I would expect that from someone like Kanye or Snoop or I don't know. If you
He's
can
not
come
gonna
up
do
with,
what you think he's gonna do with them.
I feel
Just
like
ask them about their
Kanye
feelings.
would bring out the 72 virgins onto the stage with him for a peace thing. You've seen any of the pictures of him with his fashion people?
Mm-mm.
What are you talking about?
You haven't seen his
Oh
new
yeah,
clothing line?
Kanye unveiled his new line.
I saw his shoes. I saw him like handing them out to his friends, and they're like, "These shoes are $750," and I was like, "Ugh, they're Nikes."
No,
They're Adidas.
Are they Adidas?
Completely different.
Sorry, Adidas. Forgot.
But yeah, his fashion show was super strange. People didn't walk down the runway. They just kind of came up in rows, like as if they were post-apocalyptic, like going through the factory in 1984, and they would stop and stand there for a while, and then walk off stage and another row would move forward, and then walk off stage, another row would move forward, and it was like that for like 20 minutes.
Hey, he's Kanye West. Give him some credit, you know.
That just sounds like he just didn't know how to run a runway show, and he was like, we're gonna be weird about it. Let's just do whatever.
I guess
Kanye about it.
we're going to be Kanye about it. So, Sean, your segue?
Oh, okay. So I don't know if you guys watched any of this, but when Taylor posts the article, you should read it. Down at the bottom, there's a video, and it's from Vice, the world's most awful cutting-edge media service. And it's this guy who talks about, like, oh, I created this weird Twitter about this deadbeat dad, which is fine. You know, like, it gave me a little bit more insight into the world of weird Twitter because I was vacant from it forever. And and he halfway through the video, he looks at the camera and says, "You know, I grew up in the '80s, or I was born in the '80s and grew up in the '90s, and like kids these days, you know, they never even go outside. Like when I was a kid, we had to go outside." And I instantly turned it off. I was like, I can't even like fathom somebody who's literally like 5 years older than I am saying something like, when I was growing up, kids went outside. And when I read your article, Taylor, I just thought, like, this is it. This is exactly, like, this debate is going on right now, and it just, it's so frustrating. So just, this is the one topic I've meditated on all week, because this thing,
Just like every generation is dogging on the generation below them.
Exactly. And so the article I shared, viewers, which will be in the show notes, it's a column from the New York Times about defining the term millennial. And they're asking, at what age do people become millennials? Because some people are defining it as anyone born from, what was it, like 1987 to 2000 or something.
I think that's a little high.
It was like 1981 or something. It was like really low, like
You're right, yeah, it was 1981 to 1998, I think. Either way, it was a really long time. And then people keep like changing the boundaries in different directions and trying to figure out what it means. And one person was saying, you know, really when you come of age or when you join the workforce determines your generation, not when you were born. And I know, Sean, you and I have talked about the economic crisis of 2008 and what it was like being in different points of our education during that process. And so I wanted to start by just asking people, I guess, at what point do you think the millennial generation starts and ends? Actually, I guess I should preface this by tell everybody the year you were born and whether or not you consider yourself a millennial. So I was born in '92, and I guess I probably would consider myself a millennial, even though I don't like the word. I think I fit in the age group that they're discussing.
Yeah, I was born in '89, and yeah, I consider myself a millennial. I don't see it as a down. I don't see it as a down term. So.
I was born in '90, and I do not consider. Well, I mean, obviously, I'm a millennial, whether I want to be or not. I wouldn't consider myself a millennial because I grew up in an era where there wasn't really an internet. So I would say that, if anything, Drew is probably the most likely candidate to be in the millennial category because he's the baby here. But I mean,
I am a baby.
I feel like sort of the millennial term is kind of is just like, it's like the millennium, so 2000. You know, that's kind of what I feel like that means. You know, so if that means like 95 and up, you know, I feel like is like millennial territory. Taylor, I feel like just barely scrapes by, even though probably everyone still thinks he is.
See, I think it's interesting because the internet in the home thing is definitely a big measure of it. But my dad also ran small businesses out of our house, and so I always had like the internet, and usually the fastest internet available because our house was his office.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas I had plenty of friends who lived in the same town as me, and some of them in the same street, who didn't have the internet as early or as fast as I did, just because their parents didn't feel the need to have it. And so I don't really like that as a defining term.
Yeah, I don't. That's the one thing that made me mad about this article. I think at the end when it was, it was a woman, right? I don't know what her name was.
Sarah gave us the link again. No, it was a man. Tom.
Okay, it was yeah. And he talks about, like, you know, in this uppity way, like, oh, when I read books, I like to have paper in my hand and stuff like that, and that's what separates me from being a millennial, because, you know, now these kids, they don't even have human contact. They don't have to. And I just think, like, it makes me tired to hear these arguments all the time about how our generation, you know, we're just not as outdoorsy or as something, or as, you know, as tough as the old school was or something like that. And it really makes me upset because I think what is the hesitation of embracing progress? You know, like I have books that are made of paper. It's great, but if I can get a free book on my Kindle, why would I waste the money or the time to go out and get it when I have a Kindle? You know, like embrace technology. It's in your hands. Stop acting like you're so above, you know, kids these days. You know, like I remember. Okay, so about a month ago, I was reading Walton, and Thoreau talks about how you shouldn't envy old people because they haven't had all the opportunities that you have had. And I thought, like, wow, what a brilliant idea! Like, what a good idea! Like, you know, I'm glad I have the internet. I'm not ashamed that I use the internet for stuff. You know, so this whole idea that like, oh, kids don't read books, there's like no nostalgia there. It's like just get off your like old timey, you know, ways of thinking that like, oh, well, if they don't do what I do, then they must be wrong.
I agree with that, but at the same time, I think there's a little bit of merit to certain elements of his argument. I do think that, I don't know, having the internet or having all of these things has made some of us kind of soft. I mean, we all were pretty lucky in that we spent a bunch of time outside as kids, and we had enough freedom to go out and do things in high school and, like, I don't know, have an experience that a lot of people our age didn't, which I took for granted until I got to college and met people who were like, oh, in high school I just kind of like played video games. Like, I didn't really do. And then I tell them stories about like just dumb stuff, like us driving around the town where we were all from and yelling things at pedestrians on the sidewalk. And they're like, that's so cool, that's the coolest thing ever. I'm like, that's not cool at all, that was super lame. It was just something we did to kill time.
Okay, so I mean, I totally like. I see what you're saying. Like, okay, you feel like privileged that you got to do that kind of stuff. I just think like, I don't lust for a day when the leading killer of children was polio. I don't think that was like, you know, like we should go back to those days. You know, Darwinism. That
so
was.
what you're saying is you're an
day.
anti-vaxxer.
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah, that's it. No, it's just like, you know, I think like, if you just want to get on somebody, if you just want to write your New York Times blog, you know, because you had to put in your 7 years at the Atlantic, blah blah blah, and now you know, like whatever. I think that there's a lot, you know, why don't we change the metric to something that actually matters? You know, I think maybe we should do generations based on like socioeconomic crises. That would be a lot better way to, you know, judge whether a generation is, you know, like he was saying like, well, I graduated before the 2008 economic crash, you know, so I had some security. Like if you want to see what makes a generation different, that will be it. You know. Mm-hmm. Privileged student loan debt will be what takes our generation back. You know, when there's a class of intellectuals and people with higher education degrees that live in poverty for the first 25 years of their lives, that's what makes a generation. Not whether or not you know, read books on a Kindle or whether you went to half-price books and picked something off the shelf. So, thanks, New York Times. Thanks.
Tyler, you're laughing. Your thoughts?
No, it's just funny because it's like, okay, you know, I having just recently graduated, I've already experienced just the slight feeling of like complete worthlessness of like the job hunt. Like I am a perfectly reasonable, functional human adult that can hold a job, that can do basic math. I have technological skills. I can talk about my opinions. But it's like, well, since you're a designer and you're not cool enough, you know, you just don't get a job. You know, it's like, it's, you know, you go on like your LinkedIn, your Indeed, your Simply Hired, your Monster.com, and there's like five design job postings. I'm gonna speak from my perspective because that's what I'm doing right now. There's like 5 job postings, and that's for like all of the Cincinnati area. How many people are graduating with design degrees every single year? At least 10. And if there's 5 job postings and none of them have jobs, and then let alone there's probably thousands of other people that are also applying for the exact same job that may not even have a design degree that just apply, and then the employer has an inbox, an email inbox with thousands of emails that all look exactly the same. They're like, oh, this one, just hire them. Like what's their process? They can't possibly go through all those. Well, they have the macros and they have the keywords that they're looking for, so there's all that. And so it's just.
So you, like Sean, think that the economics is really what defines the generation?
Yeah, I guess. I mean, I just don't know what we're supposed to do.
Well, okay, so I kind of base my crackpot theory on the idea that, like, okay, our parents' generation, they went through the economic crisis in the 70s, which brought about, like, free market economics, liberalism, Milton Friedman, the whole 9 yards. They lived through that. Like, my parents were my age when that was happening, and that shaped them profoundly. Like, I believe how we got to where we are today was based on that particular event, that whole realignment. And before that, the greatest generation, as Tom Brokaw would like to call them, not only did they go through a war, but they went through a recovery of that. Like, there was large series of socioeconomic change that produced that. They weren't thinking like, I'm sure there had to be like murmurs under the ground, like, well, back in my day we had to, raise our own corn, and now kids can just go to the grocery store and raise a family. But you think, like, that sounds so stupid. That sounds
so stupid. You can buy a family online.
So yeah.
Drew, you're the baby of this group by a little bit. What are your thoughts on all of this? Do you feel separated from any of us by age, or is there like a certain cutoff point where you're like, oh, those people are a different generation from me?
A little bit, because growing up, I had dial-up for like the longest time, probably until like 05, 06 almost. So I still had the thing where I couldn't use the computer if my parents were like expecting a call or something like that. Like, if anyone out there remembers that. Yeah, I know I sound like an old man, but so I would like ride bikes around the neighborhood and go outside and all that, but I would also like play PC games that weren't like connected to the internet, like Tonka Trucks and Rita Rabbit and that sort of thing. Yeah, that's what I did.
Yourself.
Yeah, that's what I did when I was 8.
So, I had a question. I totally lost it.
I was playing real-time strategy games when I was Drew's age, probably.
Probably.
Well, yeah, I just feel like there's like generation, like I'm part of like the millennial generation, Generation Y, which is like the very beginnings of the internet, and like still people apparently still went outside, which I feel like when I go to my parents' house, there's like kids who are like 8, 7 playing outside, like the generation like below us, Generation Z, and they're like out playing outside with bikes and like little pedal cars and stuff like that. But I think that the only real difference between them and us is that the internet was like even more of a thing when they're growing up just now, because like I've seen like 6th graders, 5th graders with like iPhone 6, like talking to all their buddies all the time.
I
we
think
didn't have that.
That's really a big metric too.
I had a flip phone until like I was 18, actually.
Jacob Carlson again with the big points. Age of Empires. That's what's up.
Yes, I had a lot of friends who were my age who were really into that.
J-Car is on fire tonight. Props to him. But yeah, I think the cell phone thing is a really cool point that actually didn't get brought up in this article. Having a cell phone was such a big, moment, I think. And
Where
now
all of your parents wouldn't let you pay for texting.
Yes.
Yeah, don't send a text. That's gonna run up that bill, man.
It's like 5 cents.
Exactly. I remember when you had your smartphone, Tyler, and we got the internet. It was like the craziest thing. Like, Tyler has the internet on his phone. Oh,
Was I the first
cool.
one?
You were,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I remember that. I was like so impressed.
I retrospectively feel cooler now.
Because that was when you got rid of the brick. That was your it was like overnight. Like Tyler Reed went from like
0 to
throwing
hero.
stones across the valley to get a hold of people to like a computer to his face. It was so strange.
Yeah, I think not growing up not with smartphones is a really big part of it. If you go back, I'll link this in the show notes, but if you go back and watch the unveiling of the original iPhone, Steve Jobs is on stage, and he's like, "We're unveiling an iPod," and everybody cheers. And then he's like, "We're unveiling a mobile phone," and everybody cheers. And then he's like, "We're unveiling a device that has access to the whole internet and fits in your pocket." And there's an audible 1-second pause where nobody has any idea how to fathom that. They're just like, "What?" And then they start clapping. And that was in 2007. That wasn't that long ago. And now, we have small children carrying the whole internet in their pocket and knowing how to use it better than I do. To a degree and for certain things.
Playing free-to-play online video games.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They have their video games. So I think we've pretty much established that we have no idea what generation we're actually in, and that's just fine because we have the interwebs.
Yeah, we have wonderful people at the New York Times to figure that out because we're all too busy trying to find work.
Exactly. So then, wrapping us up for tonight on a much lighter note, Sean.
I don't know if I would call it that, but okay.
Okay, well, this week I posted a video that everybody should watch. I posted a video by a wonderful band. They're called Title Fight. They just released their third album on Anti Records, and the song is called Chlorine. I really like the song. It's kind of a new direction for them versus their old stuff. They used to be pretty post-hardcore punky. Now they're doing what some reviewers have called shoegazy punk, which I kind of agree with. I think it's a good way to talk about it. And a lot of reviewers were kind of upset about that, like, oh, they're not as hardcore as they used to be. But I like it. I think it's great. I like their old stuff too. I don't understand why you, once again, back to last week's Evan segment, I don't understand why you just can't like both. Radical thinking there. But yeah, so I posted the video. I thought it was a really cool idea. For those of you who haven't seen it, it's kind of the storyline is kind of this guy who wakes up on a boat. He doesn't know where he's at, and he jumps off the boat, and he wakes up on the boat again. This happens a bunch of times, and you realize that there's actually a team of scuba divers that keep making him repeat this Groundhog Day scenario on a boat. And
I'm on a boat.
yeah, so yeah, that I really liked it. I thought it was really cool. The whole idea, the music was cool. I just wanted to show people, see what they thought about it. So, anybody want to go first?
Well, I went ahead and I listened to the whole album. I didn't even watch the music video. Sorry. I just looked it up and listened to the album, and I listened to it on Bandcamp several times, and Bandcamp kept being like, "Now's the time to give them some money," and I was like, "No, thank you." And then there was a little heart, and it broke, and it followed. I'm like, "Come on, I'm just give it a spin. I'm just trying it out. What the fuck?" All right. So I mean, it certainly wasn't bad. I'll say that right out the gate. But it felt very like I felt like there was like a sort of like it was pretty consistent. There wasn't. I felt like the dynamics of the album was pretty low. You know, there wasn't like a huge range of things going on, which I didn't listen to their older albums, so I wouldn't have that to compare it to. But I would imagine their older stuff probably has a little bit more dynamics, a little more stuff going on. But that's not necessarily even a bad thing, because sometimes you need just kind of like almost like a nice like hum, like nice, like a nice constant sort of kind of sound to to kind of suit your mood. I don't try to really listen to music that I feel like takes me down. Like I used to listen to Under Oath and all sorts of sad and angry music, and I realized it kind of was like affecting me, which probably just speaks to my weak-mindedness, but but I don't know. I mean, I listened to it several times. There wasn't like anything that really stuck out to me, and that makes me sad because you liked it so much. But I was like, I was trying. Listened to it like 3 or 4 times. I just couldn't find like a key track that really stuck out. Like if you listen to like Gaslight Anthems, like 59 Sound, Cowgirls, Always Sing the Blues. You're like, boom, this song is different. This feels completely different than the whole album. It's missing maybe like kind of like a song to kind of like mix it up a little bit, but maybe that wasn't the point. So.
See, I'm going to argue that it wasn't the point. I haven't listened to the album, but I know Sean's taste, and I know this style. And these shoegazy and shoegaze-inspired groups tend to do that. It's kind of an album that feels like the same thing the whole time, and it's almost trance-like in a way. You look at a band like Tame Impala or something like that.
Yes, yeah, that's...
Yeah, like, you're not meant to have a whole lot of emotional range when you're listening to it. It's something to just kind of zone out to, or to drive long distances or something like that. It's almost meditative in a way. And I really got that vibe just from listening to this single. It's got that, like, Circa Survive-esque, loud but thought-provoking thing. I also see that in a different way with groups like La Dispute and Me Without You. Really loud, complicated, but in a way drony music that just makes you think.
Mm-hmm.
No, Tyler, you should listen to their second album. When I watched the interview, or when I watched some reviews of it, people said like, "Oh, they really changed from what they were doing before," and I agree. But when you listen to the second album was compared to Fugazi a lot, and I know as a big fan of them, that would ring a bell. And so I think you should give it a listen. But when you listen to the second album, there is a lot of this. There is a few tracks that have hints of what is now Hyperview, which is their new album, and it's there. Like to say that people say like, well, this came out of left field, like they joined Anti Records and Anti like really made them make this, something that they didn't want to do. Like that's not true. I really think that Anti probably said like, we can help you get to this new audience that you want to get to if you want to make this. Because when I hear others, when I listen to the whole album, I thought like there's still elements of punk and hardcore, like post-hardcore here.
Definitely.
Like that dude can scream, like with the best of them. And so that's what I thought. Like I thought there was an intensity there that was still mellow, like Taylor said with Tame Impala, Lonerism, which I've been just in love with too as recently. That's what I thought was a nice mix. I was like, wow, this is cool. You can have this like punk intensity and still have this like shoegazy tone throughout the whole time. Almost drony.
Spend some time with the early Me Without You records. I think you'll really dig that. Drew, you have some fairly like psychedelic influence tastes. What did you think? Did you hear that in this?
It didn't really. Well, I only listened to the music video, but I didn't really make the whole Tame Impala connection. But it reminded me a whole lot of like 90s grunge, like early 90s grunge, and like the first few Smashing Pumpkins records where it was very shoegaze inspired, but like kind of still evolving into grunge. That's what it reminded me of a lot.
I wouldn't say Smashing Pumpkins are very shoegazy, but that's okay.
Oh, really?
I think some of it would be. God, I'm a broken record. Every week, every week is going to be Smashing Pumpkins for me. You're going to hear me use Billy Corgan's name. So sorry, guys.
If you don't like Smashing Pumpkins,
It was my fault for bringing that up.
I'm willing to.
Yeah, that's what it reminded me of.
Hold on, let me look it up. No, actually, just
here. Oh, go ahead, Tyler. I was going to say, if you want to look it up, we should do that.
I just want to see if that's even listed in like their in their Wikipedia, if they have any sort of like shoegaze elements to them.
Who, Smashing Pumpkins? Or
Yeah.
Tyler?
Here, while we're looking that up, we should. I don't know if you guys saw the Facebook. We all decided that we're going to do a trivia thing as part of the podcast. So this week I went out and got the first prize. Look for the question probably on our Facebook and Twitter. We'll try and get it out. And I think how we're going to do it, we don't have the question yet, but it's going to be from one of these two first podcasts, either 0 or 1, about something from the podcast. Don't know what. But if you win, first one to answer, whatever means necessary, however you get it to us, you'll get this awesome record, Grand Funk. It's pretty neat. It's got these cool 3D sunglasses for the awesome 3D cover and inside poster. It's all here. The glasses haven't even been removed. So this lovely record could be yours right here. Just answer our questions. So.
Yeah, seriously, keep your eyes peeled to the Facebooks and the Twitters, and if you win, we will send you this ridiculous record, and it will be awesome. If you have prizes that you would like to donate to Dudes Brunch, aka records you no longer want or CDs you no longer want, send them our way, and we'll give them to someone else.
Oh, it has a 30-day money-back guarantee too. So if you get it and you say like, oh, it's all scratched, and you know, the 3D glasses didn't look as cool as it would, like, you know, sucks.
Take it back to the record store action.
Wait, are we saying that Smashing Pumpkins are grunge? Is that what we're saying?
We're saying they're shoegazy grunge.
I don't say alternative.
Like I read several articles that say that they were like inspired by Loveless by My Bloody Valentine.
Okay, all right. I submit. Okay, I got it.
Tyler
You gave me a reference. I'm willing to say that you're right. That's fine.
And with that brings us to a little over an hour. Sorry, guys, we went a little long this week. But
4
that means
minutes.
it's time for Shameless Plugs. So,
late.
going in the order of the people on my screen, Tyler, shameless plug from you.
I mean, I ain't done nothing. No, I've been working on the branding like this whole week. Usually I'd be working on t-shirt designs or doing literally anything productive at all. Thank you. I, however, did do a series of charcoal drawings of bat heads juxtaposed onto fancy people bodies, and it's got like 80 notes on Tumblr, so that's heating up.
Ooh, man.
I could link it to you, but I don't care. It's not that big a deal. I'm just saying I'm doing things. Things are happening. Whatever.
And follow him on Twitter if you want to see more things.
That's right. TDR Design. It's already there. You already see it. It's right. It's around the screen.
Sean, shameless plugs from you.
Started working on my Tumblr again, fixing it up from last week. So if you want to get all depressed about yourself and reflect about how love is ugly, I'll post. I'll have to give Taylor my link to that, so follow me on there. I also got a Twitter this week. Big news. Hey. That's me. It's Evans_Emerge, which is my political consulting little project that I do, little company. So yeah, follow me. I won't probably have anything really fun to say, but shameless plug. So just follow me, please.
Yeah. Plugs from you?
Plugs from me?
True.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sorry. My internet
Okay,
is really
folks,
choppy
we're
tonight
still
for
working
some
on it.
reason.
We'll get better, I promise. We're not.
Yeah, the hamsters need to run faster. Anyways.
You don't plug your computer into a potato.
But it's working!
I listen.
Anyways.
It's for clocks.
Let him do his plug.
Plug.
What are you
Twitter is up
plugging,
on the
Drew?
screen if you want me to. My Twitter at jetskiskiski. If you want to follow my adventures in Kalamazoo.
Man, Drew's internet connection is rough.
And where I. Okay, Taylor just said something and I missed it because my internet is awful.
You need another potato, Drew.
Yeah.
Follow at
Should go to the grocery
JetSkiSki
store
on
and buy
Twitter
them.
as he tries to figure out how to use the internet through potatoes.
Yes.
And as always,
What are we talking about next week? Give us a.
yeah, you can follow
Give us
me
a-
at TC
give us a
Olmstead. You can follow the podcast at Dudes Brunch. You can like the podcast on Facebook, Dudes Brunch Podcast. It has the little DB from the pig's head up there. Next week on Dudes Brunch, we're going to be talking about why Ringo Starr is or isn't the best Beatle. So tune in for that, and we will see you next week.
Is that true?
Who knows?
That he is or isn't the best